What if I were to tell you that the person you have been waiting for to love you has been standing in your own reflection all along? You have sought affection. You have earned approval. You have tried to prove your worth through achievement, through status, and through sacrifice. But in the quietest part of your heart, you still feel that something is missing, do you not? Here's the truth that most people never have the occasion to hear. You will never rise higher than the way you perceive yourself. Until you learn to love yourself more profoundly than anyone else, you will continue to petition the world to give you that which only you can give yourself. Every failure, every heartbreak, every missed opportunity, they all trace back to a single fundamental wound: self-rejection. You have been led to believe that love must be earned, that worth must be proven, and that peace must be found in the eyes of another. But as the great thinker Napoleon Hill once said, no man can climb to success without first conquering himself. And that is the secret we were never taught. Self-love is not a form of softness, it is the ultimate discipline. It is the conscious decision to treat yourself with the same loyalty, the same faith, and the same respect that you have so freely given to everyone else. When you love yourself, you cease to chase approval and begin to create your destiny. You cease to doubt your power and begin to command your reality. This is not a matter of ego, it is a matter of energy. Because the moment you fall in love with the person you are, you unlock a vibration that begins to attract everything you have been pursuing. In this message, you will learn how to rebuild the most important relationship of your life, the one with yourself. You will discover how self-love can rewire your mind, reshape your destiny, and become the silent force that draws success, peace, and purpose into your life. So, take a breath, allow the noise of the world to fall silent, and prepare to meet the version of you that you were always meant to love, the version that no longer waits to be chosen, because they have finally chosen themselves. Before a person experiences failure in their business, in their relationships, or in their life, they first experience a failure within. This occurs not because the world has turned against them, but because they have quietly turned against themselves. This is the hidden malady of our generation, self-rejection. You will not see it discussed on the news. It does not make headlines, but it is silently destroying more dreams than poverty, fear, or external failure ever could. Most people live their entire lives completely unaware that they are at war with their own reflection. They pursue wealth but feel unworthy of it. They seek love but feel undeserving of true affection. They chase success but feel they do not merit peace. And they cannot understand why everything they build eventually seems to crumble. Napoleon Hill once said, "Your only limitations are the ones you set up in your own mind." What he did not need to add was this: if you do not love yourself, you will set those limitations everywhere. Think about it. How many times have you doubted a brilliant idea before it even left your lip? How many times have you apologized for your very existence, for wanting more, for dreaming beyond the comfort zone of those around you? That is not humility, that is self-rejection disguised as politeness. It is the silent assassin of one's purpose. Self-rejection is like a slow corrosion. It eats away at the structure from the inside until the entire edifice collapses. You might still smile, you might still post, you might still perform and achieve, but deep down, you are corroding. You second-guess your intuition. You question your own value. And you allow the opinions of others to hold more weight than your own inner voice. This process begins very early. When you were a child, someone may have told you that you were too loud, too emotional, too ambitious, or simply too much. And instead of questioning their belief, you built your life around the idea of hiding yourself. This is how most people experience a kind of death long before their physical passing. not in the body, but in the spirit, from a slow creeping infection of self-rejection. You cannot attract wealth, love, or opportunity while secretly believing you are unworthy of them. The subconscious mind does not deliver what you wish for, it delivers what you believe you deserve. And if you have spent years criticizing yourself, comparing yourself, or constantly measuring your worth by the approval of others, you have trained your mind to reject success before it even has a chance to arrive. Psychologists call this confirmation bias. Napoleon Hill called it autosuggestion. Whatever you repeat to yourself becomes your truth. If your inner dialogue consistently says, "I am not enough," your mind will filter your reality to prove it. If it says, "I am capable, worthy, and unstoppable," that same mind will begin to reorganize your world to match that belief. You are the only thinker in your mind, and yet, most people allow that inner voice to become their worst enemy. They forgive others instantly but punish themselves for years. They trust strangers more than their own intuition. They treat their body like an adversary, their mind like a battlefield, and their potential like a crime. So I ask you, how long will you continue to betray yourself? How long will you keep giving everyone else your compassion while leaving yourself starving for it? True transformation begins the moment you decide to stop running from yourself, to stop waiting for someone else to validate your worth, and to stop expecting others to give you what only self-love can provide. Because self-love is not selfish, it is a form of spiritual hygiene. It is how you clean the lens through which you see your life. When you love yourself, you raise your personal vibration. You change your posture, your tone, your energy, and the world begins to respond to you differently. People sense it. Opportunities recognize it. Your subconscious mind obeys it. Everything begins to align. Not because life has suddenly become easier, but because you have finally stopped rejecting the one person who could change it all, you. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot build from a foundation of broken trust, and you cannot manifest abundance from a mindset that has been poisoned by self-doubt. Loving yourself is not an act of arrogance. It is the decision to stand in your truth and declare, "I am enough, and I always was." From this moment forward, begin to notice how you speak to yourself. Catch the small insults you may whisper under your breath. Replace them with words of faith and affirmation, because your subconscious mind is always listening, and it takes your voice as its law. Every thought is a command. Every belief is a blueprint. And every moment you choose self-acceptance, you are rewriting the story of your life. The world does not need another version of you trying to fit in. It needs the real you, confident, whole, and unapologetically alive. So today, let the revolution begin where it matters most, not against the world but within yourself. Your brain is the most faithful instrument you will ever have. It obeys your beliefs without question. It does not care whether your thoughts are empowering or destructive. It simply takes your orders. Napoleon Hill referred to it as the subconscious mind, the connecting link between man and infinite intelligence. Modern science calls it neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself based on repeated thought. But both point to the same profound truth. You become what you repeatedly think about. Every word you speak to yourself becomes your body's chemistry. Every image you hold in your mind becomes an instruction. Your brain releases hormones and signals to match the story you believe to be true. If you tell yourself, "I am not enough," your nervous system releases cortisol, the stress chemical preparing you for rejection, fear, and a defensive posture. But when you affirm, "I am capable, I am worthy, I am guided," your brain releases dopamine and serotonin, the same chemicals associated with confidence, motivation, and joy. This is not poetry, it is biology. Your self-talk literally programs your emotional reality. Neuroscientists have proven that your thoughts fire and wire together through repetition. The more often you think a thought, the stronger that neural pathway becomes, until it is automatic, effortless, and unconscious. That is why negative thinking can feel so natural. It is simply a practiced habit. But here is the miracle. The same mind that built your fears can be trained to build your faith. Imagine your mind as a garden. Every thought you repeat plants a seed. If you constantly plant seeds of doubt, comparison, and fear, you will harvest anxiety and insecurity. But if you plant seeds of gratitude, confidence, and purpose, you will grow resilience, clarity, and abundance. Your subconscious mind does not care what seeds you plant. It only multiplies what you allow to grow. Napoleon Hill taught that faith is a state of mind that may be induced by autosuggestion. This means that when you repeat empowering statements long enough, your mind eventually stops arguing with them. It accepts them as truth. It begins to look for evidence in your world that matches this new belief. This is how the wealthy, the peaceful, and the successful live. They have trained their minds to expect the best, to interpret life through the lens of possibility. Their nervous system is tuned to opportunity, not to danger. Their thoughts generate energy, and that energy commands results. Science now confirms what Hill discovered a century ago. Your brain cannot distinguish between a vivid imagination and a real-life experience. When you visualize success vividly, the same neurons fire as if you have already achieved it. That is why mental rehearsal is so powerful. Every time you see yourself winning, your brain says, "Let us make this real." This is why self-love is not emotional fluff. It is a form of neurological power. When you treat yourself with compassion, you deactivate the brain's threat system and turn on its caregiving system. You literally shift your state from survival mode to creation mode, from fear to faith, from chaos to control. People who love themselves operate from a different frequency. Their decisions come from a place of clarity, not panic. Their energy attracts solutions instead of problems. Their confidence is not arrogance, it is chemistry. It is what happens when your body and mind are aligned in a state of self-trust. You see, your brain has one primary mission, to keep you safe. But safe is often just another word for stuck. If you have lived your whole life believing you are unworthy, your brain will sabotage anything that threatens that identity, including success, love, and happiness. That is why people often find themselves repeating the same cycles. They are loyal to the chemistry of their past. But the moment you decide to believe differently, the moment you choose new thoughts, your brain begins to build neural highways, pathways of courage, confidence, and worthiness. Every morning when you wake up, your mind runs the program you installed yesterday. So, if you want a new life, you must install a new program, one thought at a time. Here is how you can begin. Each day, speak to yourself with intention, not as a critic, but as a coach, not as an enemy, but as an ally. Say it out loud: I'm in control of my mind, and therefore my life. My thoughts create my reality, and I choose thoughts that create peace, power, and prosperity. Do this long enough, and your brain will stop resisting. It will start believing. And once that belief takes root, your actions will follow effortlessly. Because here is the truth: your outer world is nothing but a mirror of your inner dialogue. You do not attract what you want, you attract what you believe you are. So, if you truly wish to change your circumstances, do not start with effort. Start with emotion. Start with belief. Start with love. Because the mind that loves itself is the mind that can create anything. Before you learned how to walk, talk, or dream, you learned how to feel about yourself. And most of that learning did not come from truth, it came from programming. When you were a child, you absorbed everything. every tone, every reaction, every silence. You did not analyze it, you internalized it. If someone dismissed you, criticized you, or ignored you, your young mind did not think, they are wrong. It thought, something is wrong with me. That belief, something is wrong with me, became the seed of self-rejection. It grew roots deep within your subconscious and shaped how you saw yourself for years to come. Napoleon Hill called this one of the most destructive forces in human potential. The ghosts of fear, the fear of criticism, the fear of poverty, the fear of rejection, all of them trace back to our childhood. You were trained not by logic, but by emotional repetition. And what is repeated becomes real. If you were told you were not smart enough, not strong enough, or not worthy enough, your subconscious recorded those words as commands. It built a pattern that kept proving them to be true. That is why, even as an adult, when an opportunity knocks, something inside may whisper, you are not ready. When love shows up, you may pull away. When success approaches, you may sabotage it. Not because you are broken, but because your inner programming is still protecting the child who was once hurt. You were conditioned to survive, not to succeed. That child learned to stay small, to avoid criticism, to please others, to earn love, and to hide their emotions, all to stay safe. Those behaviors once protected you, but now they imprison you. Napoleon Hill said, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. But here is the part that most people miss. You cannot believe in your dream if you do not believe in yourself. And you cannot believe in yourself if your subconscious still thinks you are that scared, unworthy child. So, the real battle is not against the world. It is against the invisible script that has been running your life. The script that says you must be perfect to be loved. The script that says you must earn rest, earn success, and earn peace. The script that whispers, who do you think you are, every time you try to rise? But what if you could rewrite it? Because you can. The subconscious mind does not care about age, it responds to authority. And the moment you stop identifying with the wounded child and start speaking as the conscious adult, you begin to reclaim control. You can tell your mind, that was the past. I am not that child anymore. I am safe now. I am powerful now. I will. And the brain will listen. Science calls it reparenting. Napoleon Hill called it autosuggestion. Both mean the same thing. Training your mind to obey a new truth. You are not the voice that doubts you. You are the awareness that hears that voice. And once you realize that, the voice loses its power. The inner enemy is not evil, it is afraid. It is trying to protect you with old strategies that no longer fit the person you have become. You do not need to fight it, you need to teach it. You teach it through repetition, through love, and through patience. Every time you choose self-compassion over self-criticism, your subconscious receives new evidence. I am safe, I am enough, I am free to grow. And slowly, the old programming begins to fade. The fear softens. The guilt releases. The inner child no longer screams for attention, because it finally feels seen. When that happens, something miraculous unfolds. You begin to trust yourself again. You start to act without fear of judgment. You make decisions without second guessing. You speak your truth without apology. This is what Napoleon Hill meant when he said, you have absolute control over only one thing, your thoughts. When you control your thoughts, you control your emotions. When you control your emotions, you control your destiny. So look at your life not as proof of your limitations, but as a reflection of your programming. You were not born doubting yourself, you were taught to, which means you can unlearn it. Every day, remind yourself, I am no longer who they said I was. I am who I decide to become. That single decision to break free from the old script is how you begin to rewrite your destiny. When you finally forgive the past and reclaim the power it stole, the child inside of you stops hiding. It smiles again. It stands taller. It believes. And that belief, that renewed faith in your own worth, is the foundation on which every great life is built. One of the greatest prisons in the world has no bars, no guards, and no walls. It is built inside the mind, from the constant need to be liked, approved of, and accepted. We live in a world that is addicted to validation. Every scroll, every post, every conversation quietly asks one question: do you approve of me? And when that approval does not come, most people crumble. They change their voice, their vision, and their values just to fit in with a crowd that does not even know where it is going. They trade authenticity for acceptance, power for popularity, and peace for permission. And in doing so, they lose the one thing that truly matters: themselves. Napoleon Hill warned of this trap a century ago when he said, "Opinions are the cheapest commodities on earth. Everyone has a flock of them ready to be wished upon anyone who will accept them." Yet, people build their entire lives around those opinions. They chase approval from family, friends, and society, as if their worth could ever be granted by someone else's perception. Here is the truth: if you require permission to feel valuable, you will always live in a state of debt to the world. You will forever be begging for the very thing that should have been self-given. The validation trap is seductive because it feels safe. It gives you a sense of temporary belonging, but at the cost of permanent freedom. It tells you what to say, how to act, and what dreams are acceptable. It teaches you to dim your own light so that others do not feel small. And every time you comply, a piece of your soul goes silent. People do not realize that approval is a moving target. The moment you meet one person's expectations, another set appears. You could spend your whole life performing for an applause that fades before you can even enjoy it. That is not success. That is a form of slavery. Napoleon Hill called it the fear of criticism, one of the 6 ghosts of fear that destroys more dreams than failure ever will. He wrote, "If you allow yourself to be influenced by the opinions of others, you will have no desire of your own." And that is the tragedy: to reach the end of your life and realize you never truly lived for yourself. So, how do you break free? It begins with one simple but radical truth: you are the authority of your own life. Every person you admire, every successful figure you look up to, once stood where you are, facing disapproval and doubt. But they chose to believe in their own vision more than in the opinions of others. They chose authenticity over acceptance, and life eventually rewarded that courage. You must do the same, because validation is a drug, and like every drug, the more you crave it, the weaker you become. You start to build your confidence on external noise instead of internal truth, and when the noise stops, you collapse. But when you stop seeking approval, something miraculous happens. You become magnetic. Your energy changes. People start to respect you, not because you need them to, but because you no longer chase it. The person who does not beg for respect naturally commands it. You begin to realize that self-approval is not arrogance. It is alignment. It is living in harmony with your own truth, your own values, and your own calling. You no longer feel the need to explain or defend yourself to anyone who has not earned the right to judge you. In Napoleon Hill's philosophy, definiteness of purpose is the foundation of greatness. And you cannot be definite in your purpose if you are constantly adjusting yourself to please everyone around you. Purpose requires focus. Focus requires self-trust. And self-trust is impossible without self-approval. So stop waiting for the world to clap for you. Stop begging for validation from people who do not even understand your path. Stop explaining your dreams to those who have given up on theirs. Approval will never satisfy you, because what you are really craving is not applause. It is authenticity. It is the peace that comes when you finally say, I am done performing. From that moment forward, your energy changes. You start to attract people and opportunities that align with your truth. The world stops testing you and starts reflecting you. When you love and approve of yourself, you stop chasing and you start attracting. You stop waiting to be chosen and you realize that you already are. That is when you become unstoppable, because the man or woman who no longer seeks permission moves through the world as if they were born to win. And they are. Every great empire is built on strong pillars. If you remove one, the entire structure can collapse. Your inner empire, the world of your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions is no different. To master yourself, to rise above fear and doubt, you must build your life upon 4 foundational pillars of power: awareness, acceptance, compassion, and care. The first pillar is awareness. Nothing changes until you see it. Awareness is the flashlight that illuminates the hidden patterns that have been running your life, the habits, the reactions, and the beliefs that you have been living on autopilot. Most people never look within. They keep blaming the world for the storms that they are secretly creating. But when you become aware, you reclaim the power of choice. You realize that no emotion, no thought, and no belief can control you unless you give it your permission. Napoleon Hill wrote, "Self-analysis is the greatest of all forms of education." When you practice awareness, you begin to see not only what you do, but why you do it. And that clarity is the birth of freedom. The second pillar is acceptance. This is not resignation, it is a form of ownership. Acceptance means facing yourself fully, without judgment or denial. It is saying, yes, I have made mistakes. Yes, I have scars. But none of these things define me. You cannot build confidence while hating the person you see in the mirror. Hill taught that success demands accurate thinking, and accurate thinking begins with accepting reality, not avoiding it. When you stop fighting who you are, you stop wasting energy on pretending. That energy then becomes the fuel for your transformation. The third pillar is compassion. You cannot hate yourself into becoming a better version of yourself. Compassion is the bridge between who you were and who you are becoming. It is not a weakness, it is a form of emotional intelligence. It is how you treat yourself when you fail. Most people punish themselves for every misstep, not realizing that guilt and shame can paralyze their growth. Compassion says, I forgive myself, but I will learn from this. It helps to rewire the nervous system from a state of fear to a state of safety. When you are kind to yourself, you open your mind to new possibilities, and that softness becomes your greatest strength. The fourth pillar is care. This is the discipline of nurturing your mind, your body, and your spirit. Care is not a luxury, it is an act of leadership. It means giving yourself what you need before the world demands what it wants from you. It is getting enough sleep, eating with intention, guarding your focus, and protecting your energy. Care is saying no without guilt, and yes with purpose. It is how you maintain your personal vibration, your clarity, and your vision. As Hill wrote, you have been given the power to control your own mind. Use it and direct it toward a definite purpose. When you practice self-care, you are exercising that power, choosing what thoughts, people, and environments you will allow to shape you. Awareness reveals the truth. Acceptance removes resistance. Compassion heals the past. And care sustains the future. Together, these 4 pillars form the foundation of self-mastery. Without awareness, you are blind. Without acceptance, you are stuck. Without compassion, you are broken. And without care, you are drained. But when all 4 are aligned, you become unshakable. The man or woman who lives by these principles cannot be easily influenced or destroyed. They no longer chase validation because they already feel whole. They no longer fear failure because they have learned how to recover. They no longer seek love desperately because they have become the source of it. When your life is built upon these 4 pillars, you will stand firm, no matter what storms may arrive. Criticism will not be able to pierce you. Rejection will not be able to derail you. Loss will not be able to destroy you. Because you have built your strength on something deeper than external approval, you have built it on internal truth. So, ask yourself today, which of these pillars have you been neglecting? Are you aware of your patterns? Do you accept yourself completely? Do you offer yourself compassion when you fall short? Do you care for your energy as if it were sacred? Because the moment you begin to strengthen these pillars, everything around you will begin to change. Your relationships will deepen, your confidence will grow, your purpose will sharpen, and your success will become inevitable. This is the real power that Napoleon Hill spoke of, the power to command your mind, direct your energy, and shape your destiny. Not by force, but by alignment. Not through struggle, but through self-respect. When these 4 pillars stand tall within you, nothing outside of you can shake your foundation. That is when you stop merely surviving and start ruling your life, like the architect you were born to be. There is a voice inside your head that never seems to rest. It questions your every move. What? It doubts your every step. It reminds you of your past mistakes and whispers you are not good enough. That voice, the inner critic, is not your enemy, but it has ruled you for long enough. It was born from the same fear that once tried to keep you safe, but now it keeps you small. Napoleon Hill said, "You are the master of your fate, the captain of your soul, because you have the power to control your thoughts." The inner critic exists only because you have allowed it to command your thoughts, instead of you commanding it. It is time to take that power back. The first step to silencing the inner critic is to recognize one profound truth. You are not that voice. You are the awareness behind it. You are the observer, the one who listens. Once you see this, you create a space between you and the noise. The critic loses its authority the moment you stop believing it. The second step is to understand its purpose. That voice developed to protect you, to stop you from making mistakes, to keep you from danger, and to help you fit in. But protection becomes a prison when it limits your growth. You no longer need just safety, you need freedom. So, instead of fighting the voice, you must retrain it. Give it new orders. Napoleon Hill called this autosuggestion, the deliberate repetition of positive thought to reprogram the subconscious mind. He taught that every idea that is impressed upon the mind and repeated with faith becomes a reality. So when your inner critic says you can't, you answer, I can and I will. When it says you are not ready, you respond, I am prepared and capable. When it says you are not enough, you affirm, I was born enough. This is not a denial of reality. It is a redirection of your mind. You are training your mind to follow new commands. Every negative thought is an untrained habit. Every affirmation is a conscious correction. The more often you replace criticism with command, the faster your brain will rewire itself. Science confirms what Hill intuited. Your brain does not distinguish between imagination and reality. It reacts to words as if they are fact. So, every time you affirm your confidence, your brain releases chemicals of certainty. Every time you speak words of love to yourself, your brain strengthens the pathways of safety and trust. And slowly, that voice of doubt becomes quieter. Not because it disappears, but because it is no longer in charge. You see, the critic can only shout in the absence of clarity. When your purpose is strong, fear becomes mere background noise. When you act with faith, hesitation loses its grip. The voice that once said, What if you fail? Becomes, what if you fly? Your words are law to your subconscious. Speak with authority. Think with intention. And when doubt arises, remember that it is just a thought, not a prophecy. Imagine if you spoke to yourself with the same patience you give to others. Imagine if your inner dialogue sounded like that of a mentor, not a bully. That is when your life begins to change. You do not build confidence by waiting for the silence. You build it by speaking truth louder than your fear. You replace noise with certainty. You choose command over complaint. Say to yourself each day, I am no longer ruled by fear. My mind is my instrument, and I choose the melody it plays. I choose faith. I choose love. I choose power. When you speak like this consistently, your inner world transforms. The critic no longer controls you, it serves you. It becomes a reminder to stay alert, not a reason to shrink. And when your inner voice aligns with your belief, the universe begins to align with you. This is how great men and women rise. Not because they never experienced doubt, but because they learn to doubt their doubt. Silencing the inner critic is not about eliminating fear. It is about mastering the conversation within. Because once your inner world obeys your command, your outer world will follow. Every successful life is built on one invisible skill: emotional mastery. It is the ability to stay calm when others panic, to stay focused when others react, and to stay faithful when everything looks uncertain. Napoleon Hill said, "Control your own mind, and you may control your destiny." That control begins with mastering your emotions. Emotions are not random, they are energy in motion. They are powerful signals, currents of vibration that can either attract or repel opportunity. When you live in a state of fear, anger, or doubt, you lower your personal frequency. You send out signals of scarcity, and life will mirror that back to you. But when you live with gratitude, faith, and a calm determination, you broadcast a message of abundance. You attract people, ideas, and opportunities that match that vibration. Wealth is not just built through hard work, it is magnetized through your energy. A calm mind makes clear decisions. A confident heart attracts collaboration. A disciplined emotional state turns chaos into opportunity. That is why emotional mastery is a form of wealth magnetism. Think about it. How many people sabotage their own success, not because they lack the skill, but because they cannot manage their own emotions? They panic under pressure. They become jealous of others. They quit when things feel uncomfortable. They react, and in that reaction, they can lose everything they have been building. Napoleon Hill taught that emotions are tools that are meant to serve you, not to control you. He wrote, "You either control your mind, or it controls you. There is no halfway compromise. When you master your emotions, you master your momentum." The difference between a mind of scarcity and a mind of prosperity is not a matter of luck or opportunity. It is a matter of response. One reacts to circumstances, the other creates them. The mind of scarcity says, "I will feel better when things improve." Yati. The prosperous mind says, "Things will improve because I choose to feel better now." That shift in emotional power changes everything. Every emotion you allow to persist becomes an instruction for your subconscious. Fear tells your mind to freeze. Anger tells it to destroy. Gratitude tells it to expand. Faith tells it to create. You get to decide which emotion will be your teacher. Emotional mastery is not about suppression. It is about understanding. It is about saying, "I see you fear, but you do not get to drive today." It is about saying, "I acknowledge this anger, but I will not act from it." It is about learning to feel everything, but to choose your response consciously. This is how leaders are made. This is how fortunes are built. The moment you can feel deeply without losing your direction, you become powerful beyond measure. Because emotions are the language of the subconscious, and the subconscious controls your actions and your ability to attract. When you master your emotions, you command your own creation. Napoleon Hill often referred to the connection between the mind and infinite intelligence, the unseen energy that responds to human thought and emotion. He taught that your emotional state is your broadcast signal to the universe. If your signal is one of fear, you will attract obstacles. If your signal is one of faith, you will attract opportunities. If your signal is one of love, you will attract prosperity. So, emotional mastery is not just a matter of personal development, it is a spiritual strategy. It is wealth in motion. When you wake up in the morning, you can choose your emotional state before the world chooses it for you. Instead of saying, "I hope today goes well," you can say, "I decide that today will go well." You set the tone, you direct the current, and the day will begin to bend to that vibration. When you feel doubt, remember this: emotion follows focus. What you focus on will grow. If you feed your fear, it will multiply. If you feed your faith, it will expand. You cannot always control what happens to you, but you can always control the meaning you give to it. That is the difference between the person who breaks down and the one who breaks through. Emotional mastery gives you the patience to persist, the calm to lead, and the clarity to see what others may miss. It is the unseen wealth that precedes all material wealth. So the next time life tests you, do not ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Instead, ask, "What emotion is this asking me to master?" Because once you master it, the test will disappear and the blessing will appear. When you love yourself enough to control your emotions, instead of being ruled by them, you become unstoppable. No insult, no rejection, and no failure can shake a mind that knows how to return to a state of peace. And that peace, that stability, that quiet confidence is the most magnetic force in the universe. Emotional mastery does not just make you calm, it makes you rich in spirit, in purpose, and in result. Because when your inner world is in order, your outer world cannot help but to reflect it. Every relationship you have with your friends, your family, your partners, your colleagues, is a mirror. It does not reflect who they are, it reflects how you see yourself. If you doubt your own worth, you will attract people who confirm that doubt. If you love yourself deeply, you will attract people who respect that love. The truth is simple: we do not receive what we deserve, we receive what we believe we are worthy of. Napoleon Hill taught that every human relationship is built on an exchange of energy. What you radiate, you will attract. If your energy says, "I am incomplete, please fill me," you will draw people who will take from you. If your energy says, "I am whole, I am grounded, I am guided," you will draw people who will add to you, not subtract from you. Most people enter relationships hoping to be completed. They can confuse attachment with love, control with care, and attention with affection. But real love, the kind that endures, begins when you no longer need another person to validate your existence. When you love yourself, you stop settling for half-hearted connections. You stop chasing people who drain you. You stop explaining your worth to those who refuse to see it. Self-love becomes your filter, and through it, you attract only those who can meet you at your level of truth. This is not selfishness, it is a form of self-leadership. Napoleon Hill wrote, "A man's greatest power lies in the control of his own mind." That control includes how you show up for others. You cannot lead, inspire, or uplift anyone if you are running on empty. Leadership begins with emotional fullness, with self-respect, discipline, and integrity. When you operate from a place of self-love, you do not manipulate, you influence. You do not demand, you inspire. You do not compete, you collaborate. Because you no longer see other people as threats to your own worth, you see them as reflections of your own growth. In business, this changes everything. The leader who loves himself commands respect without having to use force. His confidence is calm, not loud. His energy creates a sense of trust. He listens not just to respond, but to understand. People follow him not because they fear him, but because they feel safe in his presence. That is a form of magnetic power, the kind that money cannot buy and status cannot fake. In love, the same principle applies. When you truly love yourself, you stop chasing potential and you start choosing peace. You no longer confuse drama with passion. You do not cling to people out of a fear of being alone, because solitude no longer scares you. You have met yourself, and that meeting has changed everything. Love that is built on dependency will collapse under pressure. Love that is built on self-respect will grow stronger with time. Self-love teaches you to have boundaries, not to keep people out, but to protect your own energy. A boundary is not a wall. It is a gate that opens only for those who come with honesty and good intention. When you know your own value, you stop negotiating your peace. Napoleon Hill's principle of definiteness of purpose applies not just to wealth, but also to relationship. Know who you are, what you stand for, and what you will no longer tolerate. That clarity creates order in your inner world, and that order invites harmony into your outer world. People often ask, how can I attract the right person or the right partner? The answer is simple: become the person you wish to attract. If you want loyalty, be loyal to yourself first. If you want kindness, speak kindly to yourself. If you want respect, practice it in your own decisions. Because you cannot attract what you contradict. When you build your relationships on a foundation of self-love, every connection becomes an exchange of overflow, not of desperation. You give because you have, not because you are trying to earn love in return. And that kind of love, the love that flows from a sense of fullness, can heal everyone it touches. The same law governs leadership. A leader who lacks self-respect will eventually collapse under the weight of their own ego or their addiction to approval. But a leader who is grounded in self-love does not need to prove their worth. They demonstrate it through their service, their consistency, and their grace. Self-love is the root of all influence. Because people do not follow what you say, they follow what you radiate. When your presence carries a sense of peace, strength, and purpose, others can feel it. They trust it. They are drawn to it instinctively. That is the invisible force of true leadership. It does not need to shout, it simply shines. When you master self-love, your relationships evolve, your influence deepens, and your life expands. You no longer chase connection, you create it. You no longer beg to be seen, you become visible through your authenticity. And you no longer fear losing people, because you know that what is truly aligned with you will always remain. Love yourself first, and every relationship, whether personal or professional, will become an extension of that power. It is the law of resonance. What is within you will shape what is around you. Lead yourself, love yourself, and your life will follow your command. Every man or woman who has ever achieved greatness discovered one truth long before the world saw their results. Success is not built on effort alone. It is built on identity. And that identity grows from one single seed, self-love. Napoleon Hill said, "Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. But belief does not grow in a mind that secretly doubts its own worth." You can work hard, study every strategy, and grind for every hour of the day. But if deep inside you believe you are undeserving of wealth, happiness, or peace, you will unconsciously reject it the moment it arrives. That is why self-love is not a luxury. It is the infrastructure. It is the foundation upon which all success is built. Without it, ambition will collapse under the weight of self-doubt. Look closely at the world's greatest achievers: Carnegie, Edison, Ford, Lincoln, Rockefeller. They did not just believe in their goals, they believed in themselves. They understood that all achievement begins in the unseen realms of thought, emotion, and self-concept. Napoleon Hill called it a definite major purpose. But behind that purpose was a mind that said, I am worthy of it. Because a purpose without belief is like a seed without soil. It cannot grow. Self-love is that soil. It is what allows your purpose to take root, your confidence to expand, and your persistence to endure. Most people sabotage their own success, not because they are lazy, but because they do not feel they deserve the rewards they are chasing. They say they want abundance, but their inner dialogue says, people like me do not become wealthy. They say they want freedom, but their self-image says, I am not disciplined enough. They say they want success, but their energy whispers, I do not belong in that world. And life obediently mirrors that belief back to them. The subconscious mind is a perfect servant. It delivers what it is told. If your inner voice is full of shame, guilt, or self-criticism, it will create conditions that match those emotions. That is why Hill insisted on the daily use of autosuggestion, to reprogram the inner story until it aligns with the vision you are chasing. Because success is never about what you do once, it is about what you believe every day. When you love yourself, you start making different choices. You stop tolerating mediocrity. You stop entertaining distractions. You stop spending time with people who drain your spirit. You develop standards, not because you think you are better than others, but because you finally remember your own value. Self-love gives you discipline. It gives you patience. It gives you faith. When you love yourself, failure becomes feedback instead of an indictment of your identity. Rejection becomes redirection instead of humiliation. Every setback becomes a stepping stone, because you no longer see yourself as the failure, you see yourself as the builder. That is why wealthy minds recover faster. They do not waste time punishing themselves. They adjust, they adapt, and they continue, because their self-worth is not tied to a single outcome. You see, success is not about luck or timing, it is about emotional stability. It is the ability to remain confident and calm while everyone else is losing control. That calm comes from self-love. You cannot build empires from a place of insecurity. You cannot create abundance from a place of fear. You cannot lead others while secretly resenting yourself. The moment you fall in love with who you are, with your potential, your purpose, your flaws, and your faith, you align with a force that is greater than mere effort. You activate a magnetic confidence that pulls opportunity toward you. People feel it. Doors open for it. The universe responds to it. Napoleon Hill called this state faith applied, faith in yourself, in your vision, and in the infinite intelligence, the higher order that obeys definiteness of thought. When that faith is rooted in self-love, it becomes unshakable. So, understand this truth deeply. Wealth begins in the heart before it ever appears in the hand. Abundance starts as an emotion before it becomes an expression. Success is not something you chase, it is something you allow when your self-worth finally matches your vision. Love yourself enough to stop shrinking. Love yourself enough to stop apologizing for your own greatness. Love yourself enough to start living like the person you were created to be. Because no strategy, no opportunity, and no external approval can ever replace what self-love builds within you. An unshakable belief, an unstoppable confidence, and an unbreakable faith. That is the real law of success. When you honor yourself, success will honor you back. When you see your own worth, the world will finally see it too. And when you love yourself more than anyone else, you will no longer chase success. You will attract it. There comes a point in every person's journey when you stop searching for love outside of yourself, and you begin to return to the source that is within. That is the moment your life changes forever. Becoming your most loved self is not about achieving perfection. It is about embracing wholeness. It is about meeting every part of yourself. The strong, the scared, the broken, the brave, and saying, I accept you. I love you anyway. Napoleon Hill said, you have absolute control over only one thing, your thought. But when you love yourself, you go one step further. You control not just your thoughts, but also the emotional frequency they carry. You think in faith, not in fear. You act from a place of love, not of lack. You move with certainty, not with desperation. That is the essence of true self-mastery, to no longer be at war with yourself. When you love yourself fully, you no longer chase approval, because you have already approved of your own existence. You no longer compare yourself to others, because you finally understand that their path is theirs, and yours is divine. You no longer fear solitude, because solitude becomes a sacred space, a place where you can recharge, create, and listen to the quiet wisdom of your own soul. The world teaches us to chase recognition, but the highest form of love is self-recognition, to see your own brilliance without waiting for applause, to know your own worth without needing validation, to stand alone and still feel complete. That kind of love changes the way you walk into every room. It changes the way you speak, the way you create, and the way you lead. Because when you love yourself, you stop performing and you start being. And that authenticity, that quiet confidence is magnetic. People will notice your peace before they hear your word. They will sense your strength before they see your success. They will feel your energy before you even introduce yourself. That is the power of a person who loves themselves. Napoleon Hill often spoke about infinite intelligence, the universal power that responds to faith and purpose. When you love yourself, you connect directly to that power. You no longer pray from a place of fear, you speak from a place of certainty. You no longer ask, when will it happen? You affirm, it is already mine. Because self-love is not just an emotional state, it is a spiritual alignment. It is how you tune your personal frequency to match the life you desire. It is how you stop asking for blessings and you start embodying them. Think about it. When you are your most loved self, you stop resisting your own greatness. You stop delaying your calling. You stop diluting your energy to make others comfortable. Instead, you walk boldly in your purpose, fully aware that your light is not a sign of arrogance. It is your assignment. To become your most loved self is to become unstoppable, because self-love fuels persistence. It silences fear. It turns pain into power and rejection into redirection. It teaches you to trust the process, even when the path is dark. And eventually you realize that you were never waiting for love. You were waiting to remember that you already are loved. That is the moment you shift from wanting life to commanding it. You no longer ask, am I enough? You say, I am everything I need to be, and I am becoming more each day. You no longer say, I will be happy when. You say, I am happy now, and that happiness will create more reasons to grow. This is what Napoleon Hill meant when he said, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Because belief, at its highest level, is love in motion. Faith is love with direction. And success is love materialized. So, love yourself until fear can no longer recognize you. Love yourself until your energy speaks louder than your words. Love yourself until your very presence becomes the answer to your own prayers. Becoming your most loved self is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of real freedom. Because from that place, you no longer chase life, you lead it. You no longer seek worth, you embody it. You no longer try to become more, you simply remember that you already are. And when you live from that truth, you awaken a power that Napoleon Hill called the mastermind, the perfect harmony between your conscious thought, your subconscious belief, and your divine purpose. That is the ultimate secret. The moment you love yourself more than anyone else, you become the source. And everything you once chased begins to chase you. So, now you know the truth. Every success, every relationship, every ounce of peace you have ever desired has been waiting, not outside of you, but inside of you. The moment you learn to love yourself more than anyone else, you stop surviving and you start creating. You stop begging life to give you permission, and you start commanding it with purpose. Napoleon Hill once said, "No one can defeat a man who knows his own worth." And that right there is the law. Because when you love yourself, you no longer live as a beggar of blessings. You become their source. You no longer ask, "When will my time come?" You realize that it is now. Your time begins the second you decide to treat yourself as the masterpiece you were born to be. Every great transformation begins with a single decision, and this is yours. To stop running from who you are, to stop apologizing for your power, to stop giving the world your half when your whole was meant to lead. So today, make this declaration out loud, with certainty and with faith. I am worthy. I am powerful. I am enough. And from this moment forward, I will love myself more fiercely, more faithfully, and more fully than I ever have before. Because when you do, the world will change around you. Opportunities will appear. Peace will find you. And everything you once chased will start chasing you back. This is the beginning of your next chapter. The chapter where you stop doubting your value and start living as your most loved self. If this message has moved something within you, do not let it fade. Subscribe, turn on your notifications, and share this video with someone who may have forgotten their own worth. Let us build a world where self-love is not seen as a weakness, but as the foundation of power, purpose, and wealth. This is Princess Leonor's speech, where we do not just talk about success, we become it, one mindset at a time. Tell me below, what is one act of self-love that you will commit to starting today? Write it down. Claim it. Because once you declare it, your transformation begins.